Hello everyone, this is Shadow Dragon from the DCUO community. So today is the last day of the Starro event as well as the spring event. And it actually turns out that it's going to be about a half day because they announced yesterday that there would be an 8-hour downtime today to prepare for Age of Justice. So when I heard that, I quickly ran a few extra runs for the Starro event. Characters that I wasn't normally running at this period, just to get some stock footage for this final review of the Starro event. So I think the best way to start this out is give some details about how I tackled the event, because it's going to correlate with the rewards that I was able to secure. So first off, this is a 2-month run, and I kind of went full force in the beginning. So starting with the dailies in order of content size. The open world solos were probably the most consistent content type across the 2 months, because I was able to run those on 10 alts daily, and I was pretty consistent about that. Like, there may have been a handful of days where I missed that, or there may have been a day or two where I ran an extra alt just to get some extra marks. But yeah, with 2 months, it was really hard to get the other content like at a scientific level, I'd say. But estimated, like, for the duos, I would say I was able to run about 7 of those per day, and to save time, I had 2 accounts, and on my premium account there are 3 characters that qualify. So of those 7, often 6 of those would be just me using 2 computers. But sometimes I felt it was faster to run them separately, so that was kind of random and based on how I felt at the time. With the alerts, probably 5 daily average, sometimes more, sometimes less. With the regular raid, I'd say I was pretty consistent in doing 1 per week on every character. I may have skipped it 1 or 2 times on one of the weaker characters. And I actually didn't reset this a whole lot, like maybe a handful of times on my top 3 characters. And the member raid was the thing that I didn't really prioritize, just because it took more time than the others. And at the start of the event, and for most of the 2-month run, I only had 1 character that qualified for it. So rather than spending the time in that raid, I used the time to run more raids on more characters. So I'd say I only ran the member raid maybe 2 or 3 times. So I mean, I didn't prioritize the feats. I was going more for the items that cost spores. So yeah, that will definitely factor in when I go over the rewards. As far as the other weeklies, the open world ones, I was pretty consistent about. Just like the raid, I was able to do all weeklies on the same 10 tunes that ran through the dailies. So that's actually a lot of marks and rewards just in the weeklies alone. So they added the bounty feat towards the end, the open world bounty, and I was able to get that feat on both accounts through just farming and phasing, and I got it down to where it was about a minute per kill. So you figure to get the entire feat, if you really sat down and did it, it's about an hour, which it's not too bad. I guess my complaint about the feat would be that you're really using a function that's kind of outside of the game in order to get it, because we're just phasing, and it feels kind of unnatural. But that's pretty much the only way to get it within, within the period that we have left. And the means to get the feat is kind of reminiscent of, if you played a villain, there's one called Corner of Gotham and Vine, where you need to get like an item from one of the dailies, and then you're using it in like a bonus mission that occurs like I think every 5 days. I don't quite remember. It was a while ago. But you had this random boss at the end, and you needed to use that item on every one of those random bosses, and the percentages were not close. Like it was Batman that had a super low chance of showing up, so there was no way you could get that feat naturally other than continuously re-logging. And again, that's a function that happens outside of the game, and I kind of don't like that when it's applied to feats. And my other concern about this weekly bounty was when the devs added it, it was meant to be a long-term thing, where you kind of notice the boss like in your area, you get the notification, then everyone rushes there and does it. That would be the natural way. So you might pick up a couple per week without phasing. So it was meant to be a long-term thing, but the fact that everyone was able to force the feat within an hour, is kind of concerning, because it means they're going to up it next time. Now, regarding the difficulty of pretty much every piece of content except for the member raid, I thought was very fair, and it was at a level where it could be fun for everyone. I'd say it was about pretty much like the seasonal events after they're adjusted, and everyone is able to do it kind of leisurely and farm their marks. And you can get an idea of this through several of my duo videos, where I'm basically just controlling two computers through a duo. So that kind of tells you how easy they are. And also, all those videos were before the defensive adjustment, because there was an adjustment they made that kind of helped out the lower tier tunes as well as pre-30s. So it was easy before that, and then they adjusted it so that it was even easier. And this also goes for, there was an outside weekly called Applied Science. Like that became soloable on more tunes after they made the adjustment. And again, you can look at my previous videos for that, because I had at least 2 videos where I showed how to solo that. And my latest one was with a nature tune too. And in all the instances that I ran, I don't think I ever came across a failed one. There was one where we wiped once at an alert, because I think I was paired with a bunch of pre-30s for the magic shop alert, and they ran into the issue where like a player would leave at the end, and they got into this cycle where they kept entering the fight with like 2 or 3 players only. But at the end, we got on the same page, and all 4 of us entered and completed it. And I also had a full supercharge by then. So in the end, I actually had to solo the boss, because everyone wiped from the Starros. But yeah, all in all, it was pretty easy. I didn't come across too many bad groups like queuing up. There was an occasional raid with toxic players, toxic leagues, which was distracting, but again, it didn't wipe. So yeah, that kind of speaks for the difficulty of the normal content. Something else worth mentioning, as you saw in the end of the previous clip there, a lot of players towards the end of the event were abandoning the alert at the beginning, like right when they saw the instance, as well as the beginning of the boss fight, like the previous clip. And that's due to a feat where you had to get every boss combination. So that's something thrown in there, and you kind of see how the community reacts to it, so it's sort of a test of morality. Now, for me personally, I would rather replay than abandon the team, even though it's a queue up. And that's pretty much how I got the feat on my main. It came within, I think, 5 or 6 weeks, which is pretty long. And then I also got it naturally about the same time on several other characters. Alright, next up are the base items, and those are probably the most automatic of the drops slash feats. I think if you just didn't pay attention and you collected everything, you would definitely get all the base feats, because these items just drop everywhere, and you get so many of them. You can even tell on the broker. They're as low as like $1 for some of them, the more common ones. So naturally, with 18 characters that I wanted to get the feat on without actually unlocking the feat, I had to do a bit of sorting, and also if I got a character close, I did buy like the last few from the broker if they were low. So I was able to complete this feat on all characters without unlocking the feat. That's how common they are. And there's just an excess of base items, like so many. I dumped them in like 5 different league halls. There were 2 for the Justice Girls, 2 for my personal ones, and another one for Silver Age Heroes. And even after that, there's still an excess, and I kind of dumped all of them on a single alt. So in probably the near future, I'm gonna build like just a base with only the Starro items, and it'll probably be like the cheapest base ever. And as far as value over time, I don't think these are going to increase in price simply because they're way too abundant, and they're also pretty targeted. Like, you're pretty much gonna build a Starro lab if you have these items. Only a handful of them are kind of generic. Like, you had the 2 tables and the hydrothermal vent, but that's about it. Everything else has to do with Starro. Alright, so next up I'm going to cover the styles as well as collections, and there's going to be some overlap between the two. So just to mention again, I have 2 DCUO accounts, so I kind of had to try to get one of each for each account. So first off, there is the Starro style, which is a 3-piece style for 90 spores. And yeah, I was able to complete that, one for each account. And same case with the 2 smaller collections. There was the Scarred Starro face style, and then another one just for the Star Killer title. So each of those was I think it was a 30 spore final piece for the collection. So those were the 2 cheaper ones. So for all those I just mentioned, it was just 1 per account, and then I unlocked it on the rest of the characters because they weren't styles I was really going to use. Alright, then there is the Starro Tech Aura, which you see in this slide. And it actually, like, I didn't think it looked that good from the live stream, but when I saw it for real in-game, I actually liked it. So on my main account, I put it on my ice and water character that you see in this screenshot, and I also collected one on my premium account, which also has an ice character. And the Starro Spore Aura is the one that I really like. So I actually ended up collecting 5 of these total. So there was 1 for each account, and then on my main account I collected it on my top 3 characters just because I like to experiment with styles on them, and then 1 additional celestial character because the the colors kind of matched part of the celestial powers. So in this slide you're seeing here, this is one of Shadow Dragon's tank armories, which I ended up saving the aura to. And like with a lot of these shoulder back auras, I like combining them with other special effects parts, especially like the runic capes, and there's the energy armor styles. Both of these auras were the more expensive collection, the final piece. So each of those ended with a 205 spore piece at the vendor. So these auras are where farming the event with alts really helped. Because if you farm these, if you spent these with your main, then you wouldn't have enough money for like the other things that matter for stats and other feats, like the omnipotence plans, and then there's of course the crown jewel, the conqueror set. So unfortunately I don't have the conqueror set pictured here, because I haven't really worked it into my armories quite yet. I only completed it on Alyssa, who is actually not going to use any of the styles quite yet. At least I don't think she is. I tried the leg piece on her, and I actually like it. Like it matches parts of Gorgon Slayer, except for like the veins. Like I kind of didn't want to have that. But anyway, I collected on Alyssa, who is my main, just to complete the feat. This was actually one feat I thought wasn't going to complete naturally. If you watch one of my earlier videos, I took a look at the vendor and was kind of thinking that I would continue it next year. But I guess with the help of the two double spores weekend, I actually was able to get enough marks for everything. Also including like the handful of replays I did randomly. And also again with the help of the alts on the other feats and collections, I was able to get Alyssa to concentrate on the 3 omnipotence plans as well as the full conqueror set. And aside from her, like before, I was actually planning to collect like different parts on different tunes, just like I did with Anti-Monitor, and then kind of unlock them all whenever we get that feature. But having it finished on my main, I turned my attention to other characters that had a high spore count. And I actually got pretty close on my second highest character, Takesis, who is actually my main villain. I was able to get all of the Conqueror pieces except for 1. And I could actually push for that, because she's really only a few like replays away from completing that, but I'm just totally drained from the event. Like I can't physically replay any of those larger contents, even if I wanted to. But I don't know. I'll see how I feel at the end of the day, but as of now, it's not a high priority. Now, this is a style I might play with on Takesis, and the piece I'm missing is just the head. And she probably won't use that, but I do like the other pieces. And like since she is a dragon, she can have like different forms between a humanoid to a dragon, and in her styles, I should be able to hide like the vein parts that I don't like. So I'll definitely show some of that in the future if I can come up with a good style. And let's see, on Shadow Dragon, I'm probably going to use some of those parts as well, and I collected most of it. I would say I'm probably missing 2 or 3 of the Conqueror set on him. And then across some other tunes, I grabbed mostly either end, like the head and the legs. Like those are my 2 favorite parts, because the head part just matches well on a bunch of villains, and the leg style matches on a lot of characters that wear like knight's armor. So on Shadow Dragon, I actually didn't collect the pieces yet because he's still working towards some of the T7 vendor sets, so I haven't made the jump to T8 for him. But when that time comes, I'll just consume the Conqueror pieces he has and experiment with some looks that I might end up saving to one of his armories. So I'll definitely either post videos or maybe pictures on Twitter when I create something with that set. But the Conqueror style, it's kind of a nice overall set, but for my characters, I'm probably going to use bits and pieces as I do with most of the other sets in the game. Oh, the other thing I should mention is because of the abundant Conqueror modes that dropped on the characters that I collected the Conqueror set on, I also just immediately upgraded the pieces that they have. And yeah, that's not something I did with the previous sets because the modes didn't drop as often as they did for this one. Alright, the next topic is crafting, and I actually thought this was pretty fun because we haven't actually crafted a gear piece for a long time. There was just T4 where we had the runic stuff. But yeah, collecting the various parts for the omnipotence items here was almost a reminder of like the Kingdoms of Amalur days that I was used to, where we would craft gear pieces from scratch that were pretty powerful. Now, but before the Starro event, omnipotence items weren't even on the map for me. Like I wasn't even thinking about them as part of any progression, just because they used to drop so infrequently. Like you could go through an entire tier without even getting them, and I typically don't replay the instances that drop them a whole lot, so that the chances of me getting one of them is even more rare than players who kind of farm instances all the time. So with Amazon Fury, they kind of addressed that by breaking it down into collections, which is still RNG, but at least you have a chance of completing it, and if not, you can just buy the pieces that other people put on the broker. So Amazon Fury made it more realistic to get omnipotence items, but it's still, like, I still wasn't paying attention to it because I was just randomly getting the collection pieces from instances. It wasn't until the Starro event that I felt like I concentrated on them. Because even at the beginning of the Starro event, I was just casually collecting the drops and not paying attention to the pace at all, until I started looking at what I got and saw that it was realistic that I could actually build these. So the Starro event actually motivated me to finish the Amazon Fury 3 ones, because I completed the Starro ones first, and then I went back and completed the two collections from Amazon Fury 3. Oh, or actually, I got the necklace from Amazon Fury 3 before I completed the Starro mask, but it was the Starro event that kind of made me go back and pay attention to. So the recipes for the 3 omnipotence items are pretty long, like considering what we've had to craft in the past. Like there's been nothing that took this many items before. So it was definitely overwhelming at first, but as you played through the event, like you started to get a feel for pace for these items, and I guess by my calculations, if you ran one character every day through the event, you'll definitely get parts for the ring. You'll most likely get the belt, and you may or may not get the mask parts. And a lot of this is dictated by the one gold piece for each, because each one's made up of 1 gold, 5 purple parts, and 25 blues. But the gold items were pretty rare, to a point where I didn't buy the plan on the character until I got like the gold drop. So about partway through the event, I was thinking that I would definitely be able to get all 3 items for Alyssa and maybe 2 for Takesis. But I actually fared way better than I thought. Like the way I ended, I actually had all 3 items for 3 characters, or potentially, because there's one mask I didn't craft yet, but I do have the plan and the parts. I just didn't get around to doing it. But yeah, with Alyssa being the priority, I got all 3 parts for her first. And then I crafted the belt and the ring for Takesis and just put it in her inventory because she hadn't jumped yet. And then, like, over time, I just got enough parts for another mask and crafted that for her as well. And again, stuffed it in the inventory. And then also for Shadow Dragon, I had the belt and the ring crafted in the inventory. And I'm actually not on pace to get another mask, or I wasn't. But he was close enough that I started buying parts on the broker, which I hadn't done previous to today, actually, or over the past 2 days. Because I was basically short 1 endoskeleton and 7 ossicles. So I just kept checking the broker and bought the lowest endoskeleton. And actually, after buying that, I did get the drop, so I'm going to be able to earn that back. But with the ossicles missing 7, I wasn't going to get the drops within 2 days. So I just periodically checked the broker, and I kept buying like the lower ones. And over the course of 2 days, I just got enough for it. So I will get around to crafting that, but I will finish with 3 complete sets on 3 characters. So what you're looking at in this slide is the remainder without the 3rd mask crafted. So if we analyze this, the first column is the mask, the second column is the belt, third column is ring parts, and then I have the Conqueror's motes by themselves. So if you factor in all the alts that I ran, and you look at the first column and consider that I bought an endoskeleton as well as some ossicles, just based on those 2 items, most players won't get the mask if you ran like 1 character, because those 2 items just seem rare for the pace, the ossicles and the gold piece, although the purples seem to be oddly more common. And what I have in the remainder isn't, like, there's nothing weird about this. If you look at the broker prices, it pretty much reflects what you see in this screenshot. As far as the second column, the remainder is, there are enough parts here for 2 more belts. So that would be 5 total belts for me, again, considering all of the alts that I ran. And the rings are super common. Like, if you add in the 3 that I crafted, this is just 1 spore short of making 8 rings. So that's like a ring per week. And I actually think I have that missing spore somewhere in my inventory. So yeah, the rings, I would say at least like 1 ring is guaranteed if you ran 1 character through everything, like even casually. And so the last thing I want to discuss is alternate progression, which is one of the main points of this event. And it was definitely very good. Like you could gear up a character like really fast with the drops and the frequency of the drops in this event. And it's often better than like regular progression, like just because the instances are so fast. And then when you use it in combination with drops from regular progression, it speeds it up even more because you have drops that offset your average by larger numbers. So the way I tackled this was I kind of had my characters in two categories. Ones that are actually building, and ones that I'm holding back or building at a slower pace, because I had to approach the drops differently. Like for the ones I'm building, um, I would carefully choose which part to attune next in order to go through the least number of cycles to get to the final T8. So I did that with I did that with one character at full speed, and that was Takesis. Like I jumped her from 164 to 189, and that could have been done almost at will because I just had a lot of stuff saved up. But I kind of spread that over several days because I wanted to play through content at each CR bump. Now for some other characters, I brought Shadow Dragon from like lower T7 to upper T7, but I still want to complete some of the sets from regular content, so I didn't jump him all the way up yet. So again, that was a combination of attuning some parts to step him up, and other parts I would purposely attune just to salvage. Like they basically did not upgrade. Like I would purposely attune a piece that would replace his highest piece, like just to not upgrade. Because in this event you get the drops, you're forced to get the gear. So you're going to jump up if you attune everything, unless you do it carefully. Two other alts I moved a little bit up from early T6 to early T7, so again following the same pattern as Shadow Dragon, where it was a combination of upgrading some gear and purposely not upgrading other pieces. Another two alts moved up from upper T4 to early T5, again at a slower pace. And there were two tunes that were in T3 relevancy where I wanted to keep them in T3 relevancy because they still have to complete some of the lower vendor sets, and I don't want to move them up too high before doing that. So on those characters, I purposely attuned to salvage and not upgrade. So all in all, this event was very good, no matter what pace you want to progress at. Like you could move yourself almost to any level at will, whether you want to do it quickly, medium speed, or not at all. And also, like if you're premium or free to play and you don't have like all the DLCs, this content is free, so you can potentially move all the way up if you wanted to, and then I guess what you would do is play when they have open episodes, and you could farm the episode feeds when that comes out. So it definitely opens up a lot of opportunities. So overall, I'd say I enjoy this event a lot, and I mean when they launched the spring event in conjunction with this, like between the two, I found myself gravitating more towards the Starro dailies than doing the spring one, partly because it's new, and it's not as mindless as the spring one, which we've had for several years already. My only complaint about it would be the timing and length, I'd say. I mean, overall, I had a lot of fun, except for Thursdays, which kind of became tedious, and that's something that's on me though. Like that was my scheduling and stuff. But yeah, as far as timing and length, I think that the Thursdays would have been remedied if it didn't overlap another event. I know that this one is set up more like a DLC than a seasonal event, but the thing that makes an event, at least to me and my user profile, is I just have a lot of alts like spread across the different tiers. So the thing that makes this an event for me is that all of the characters qualify for it. So naturally I'll be playing more characters through this, compared to a DLC where I only have one or two. And the other thing is the length. Like, I felt 2 months was overkill. Just started to get repetitive, and it's just really long. Like, none of the seasonal events ever go that long. Like, they're usually a month, and at most, if there's a makeup, maybe an additional week. Like, if there's a lot of downtime, they've added an additional week, but it's never been 2 months. So I felt that the 2 month period is a little bit too long. If they could just, like, if this ever returns again, I'd like it to be 1 month and not overlap anything. And naturally, if it's 1 month, it's easier to slot in to an empty space. But I know that the length and the scheduling is a tough thing to compromise on, because then you're going to have players who complain that you can't complete everything within the 1 month time period, and there's always going to be people who really go out of their way to force all the feats within that time period. So again, yeah, it is a difficult subject to compromise on for the devs, because like here I am saying it's too long, but someone else is going to come along and say that they weren't able to complete it and they want it to be longer. So again, I guess that's probably where you turn to the server logs and you look at the traffic patterns. But I'm just exhausted after this, just because it's 2 months and the way I've been running it. So yeah, that's my only knock on it. But other than that, I felt it was fun. It was a good change of pace, and it touched on a lot of things: styles, items that counted for stats, base items, a lot of stuff in here. So overall, great job, and I hope everyone fared well with their drops. So that's it for my review. Thanks for watching.